Hi, I'm David Lee, and I'm at Blue Lake Regional Park in Fairview, Oregon, 15 miles east of Portland and just south of the mighty Columbia. Today we're going to talk about Blue Lake and its watershed. We're going to cover some history, statistics and attributes, and focus on the lake's water quality, which has been impaired for quite some time. We're going to discuss why we believe it's having those challenges. And finally, we're going to talk about recommended measures to overcome those challenges and restore the lake so that the 350,000 visitors that come to this regional park and this lake each year can fully enjoy it, as well as the permanent residents who are here year-round. So here's a slide of Blue Lake and its watershed. You can see Fairview Lake there just south of Blue Lake, Columbia up top of the picture. Get a sense of the regional park there. Also get a very good sense of the development around both these lakes. Specifically, we're talking about Blue Lake there to the east and then south on the interlocking. It's got a really interesting history, this whole particular area. Businessmen owned the lake and they were going to do a country club, and then the 30s happened and that kind of fell apart. But it by then, or through that, they started to develop or build these rustic cabins on the lake. Kind of a part-time summer thing for probably the Portland residences or nearby residences in the city. So in the 30s, a family bought it from those businessmen, and they came in. I think they owned most of the park, and they expanded it with games, tavern, dance halls, baseball. So it was probably the place to be on a Saturday or Saturday night. The family actually managed the lake water quality at that time. So then that led to, I guess the family got out of it, and Multnomah County purchased it in 1960. And then in the 90s, Metro Regional Government, which is the 3 counties, which included Multnomah County, they manage it. In terms of Blue Lake and its development, it's pretty much been developed since the 90s. I threw some stats there. Fairview Lake. In terms of the residential lots, they range in size up to 3/4 acre. There's only about 60 Blue Lake lots, and I think there's maybe 1 or 2 that are empty. But I imagine that was all cabins or those types of homes, and those are torn down. And then there's probably $300,000 to $600,000 homes in that residential area now. Picture of let me see the pictorial of the regional park there to the left, and then kind of a bird's eye view of the lake. That is looking east, the Columbia there at the top, and then you can kind of see the swimming area. The picture to the right, you can see how the houses overlook the bluff onto the lake. That is, let me see, that was just taken from the swimming area, the beach. Let's go into the hydrologic budget. So I had the area of interest at 262 acres. 66 acres is just the lake. You can see the flow pictorial. The only thing that would come out of Blue Lake would be Errata Creek, and that's an infrequent seasonal. And I think it rarely, the Blue Lake would rarely get high enough for anything to flow out via Errata Creek. In terms of the soils in the watershed, mostly silt and clay loam. The wetlands are the east part of the watershed. They've got disc golf course there. The impervious surfaces, typical. The park has paved parking, roads and streets, and also the residential area. Groundwater wells. We've got 3 aquifers feeding the wells. The Interlochen Water People's Utility District manages the entire water service from these wells to the residences there at Blue Lake and Fairview Lake. Portland Water Bureau is also involved. That's a map, and the numbers there are the feet down to, or the depth of the well. So in terms of the inputs and outputs to Blue Lake, precip, recharge the groundwater, well water consumption in there, estimated that based on 2009 report, and then runoff came up with, let me see, about 470 acre feet per year. Let's go into water quality. Long list of problems with Blue Lake, listed in Clean Water Action Section 303D. It's been listed in DQ's impaired water bodies, I think, since 1998. So a number of things keep it on that list. You can see the signs there from this last September, I think, that there's no swimming or fishing, pretty much closed down. And I think that's a regular occurrence as the summer goes on, that they close everything down because of the weeds or the blooms. And you see pictures of the aquatic plants there off the beach. In terms of point source loads, none are really known. Non-point source loads, the usual suspects. I focused on nitrogen-based fertilizer applied at homes and parks. And did a TMDL for Blue Lake in terms of concentration. I had as an acceptable nitrogen concentration was 2 or 2 to 6 milligrams per liter. And through my calculation then, calculating the contribution of nitrogen from fertilizer based on metrics that I found on manufacturer's website, I came up with a concentration of 0.97 milligrams per liter, which I think is low. I think they had some data from one of the wells, and it was between 1.5 to 2 milligrams per liter. This is one aquatic plant that they had problem with. I think they still have problems with Eurasian milfoil, and they had been using herbicide to mitigate that, and there was something to do with a court order that they couldn't use it, and so they discontinued its use. But it's just a never-ending list of things that are wrong with the lake or impairs the lake, and attempt to solve it. So as I was saying, just past measures that they've tried. They did a biological control with these weevils, introducing weevils to kill the plants. Sediment agitation, mechanical harvesting, herbicides. They've done drain and fill, drain and do try and kill the plants with cold. They've tried. I couldn't put down the entire list of things they've tried, but they've tried a lot. They've studied the lake a lot, but nothing seems to be the solution. So in terms of my recommendations, I don't think it's 1 or 2 or 3 things that they should do that's going to correct the problems with the lake and not make it impaired anymore. I think it's doing a strategic plan, a longer-term plan by Metro, 3 to 5 years, and including all the stakeholders, as many as possible, to really do an immersion in terms of getting it under control with these types of activities. I think it's been studied so much, and so many people have tried over the last 20 or 30 years. I think there was even a document that said the lake had the same problems or type of problems in 1937. That if they're really serious about improving the water quality of the lake and having it open for swimming and boating, They really need to do like a full court press and have a longer term plan, and I didn't get a sense that they did. It was almost like if somebody was available, then they do a study and they go off, and a few years later they might try some things. But I think it really requires some overall attention and immersion and a longer term strategy, and really leveraging that public-private partnership as much as possible in terms of the HOA, PSU, Metro, volunteers. Portland is famous for its volunteers coming to the rescue on something like that. So really having an organized effort to improve the water quality at that lake, and hitting some of the items, if not some, all of the items on the list, and using that entire workforce of stakeholders that you put together to implement the 3 to 5 year plan and really give it a chance.
As you've heard here today, Blue Lake and its watershed plays an important role in this community and has been for almost 100 years. Blue Lake has so much to offer the 350,000 annual visitors and the permanent residents: swimming, boating, water skiing, and fishing, to name a few. But only if effective corrective measures are taken and those measures are maintained to keep the lake weed and algae free in all seasons. This can happen through public-private partnerships with Metro, the Blue Lake Interlochen community, and volunteers. When we work together in public-private partnerships, we can solve any problem, including what has impaired Blue Lake. You can read more about Blue Lake and its watershed in the comprehensive online 2019 report. Thanks for watching and learning about Blue Lake and its watershed. I'm David Lee, and have a safe and happy holiday season.